how are you two fine gentlemen doing on this August day?
Yeah, we're good, or I'm good anyway. The heat wave is finally in decline, so it's actually like a reasonable temperature right now. Yeah, wearing long trousers for the first time in like 2 months. So yeah.
Oh man, it's still key shorts wearing weather here in Florida.
But isn't it always in Florida?
It's 12 months out of the year.
Yeah, all right, yeah, it's not the same here.
Well, I have hold on, let me back up. First of all, thank you again for agreeing to sit down and chat with me. It has been I think a little over a year now since we talked for the Gameumentary article.
Oh yeah.
And so much has happened.
Oh yeah.
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 Because I think that was, at least from my understanding, that was before you guys had a publisher. Or if you did, you were playing those cards very close to the vest.
Yeah, we had a publisher then, because it was around Gamescom last year, basically, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Because the game had a name, and that would have put it around about a year ago, because it was sometime around Gamescom. But at that point, we'd signed with Raw Fury, but we kept it quiet until December.
Yeah, we had announced it. Yeah.
And now working with Raw Fury as a publisher, obviously a much, much smaller entity, how has that experience been similar or different, or, what's been your thoughts on that so far?
It's quite different because, I mean, from my point of view, when I was working at Tarsia, we always had a publisher, but I was part of a much larger entity. And even on projects where I had sort of direct contact with the publisher, you're looking at like a much, much different kind of relationship, with Raw Fury being a very, very small publisher and being focused towards very small indie teams. It's a much more personable relationship, I think, between the companies a lot of the time. Like, it doesn't feel particularly weird to be sort of hanging out with the CEO of our publisher and, just going out for beers with him and stuff. So it's very, very personable and very friendly in the general interactions, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was of course, when I was at Ubisoft Massive, I mean, it was like several layers between me and anyone who would have be the equivalent of a publisher within Ubisoft. So that's obviously a little bit different. Yeah.
Well, I have finally had a chance to sit down and play it myself.
All right.
And it is delightful.
Nice.
Thank you.
Because I remember because when I booked the interview with you guys last year, it was one of those where the boss was like, "Hey, this seems like a cool story to cover." But after talking to you guys, I was really excited for the final product, and it was. I played a couple hours last night because I got that key from David,
nice.
And it's excellent.
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
I don't necessarily know how much has changed since the last time we talked to the product now. I'm sure tons under the hood has gone on. Just keeping up with the GIFs that you guys post on Twitter and all that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, you maybe hadn't added waterfalls yet or tunnels or something last time we talked. But
Very recent. But I mean, I think the basics of the art style and the core combat essentially the same. But I mean, a lot of the art has changed. There's a lot more color and variety in there. A lot of updates to the UI and stuff. There's and gameplay-wise, although the core combat has stayed pretty much the same, all of the metagame has changed drastically.
Yeah,
back when we last spoke, it was going to be a linear progression of predefined levels, and now it's roguelites with everything procedural and permadeath and all this stuff. So the actual progression of the game has changed drastically.
Yeah, I think that's quite often the case with when you make games that it looks like the first part, it goes very fast. Like the first 90% of the game goes very fast, but the second 90% of the game takes a very long time with the thing and just all of the all of the menus and the flows and the save systems and the all of that, making sure that all works for different platforms. And so the core was in place probably a year ago, but a lot of the non-gifable work has been done since then.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Rich, you may have just mentioned it. One of the things that kind of surprised me was the permadeath element of the commanders, because that was a little stressful the first time that I was like, oh wait, this guy's just toast. He's not coming back anymore.
Yeah.
That was really interesting and kind of exciting to discover the first time, being like, oh, I have to actually be, there is more strategy to this than one would expect on the surface.
I think there's a nice element of the game that goes along with that, where and this has come up on some of the YouTube videos that are going out this week.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's quite simple, it's quite relaxing, you're just sort of putting your guys in position and they're dealing with the Vikings, and it's quite nice. It's a little puzzle to solve, and things are flowing along, and then you hit the moment when it's not all flowing along.
Yes.
And you have to panic and you have to get back on top of it. A lot of the game is feeling out when that's likely to happen and trying to prevent it, but also being able to react to that quick enough. And you really get those moments of like stress and panic where you have to react.
Mm-hmm.
And the permadeath is something that adds to that stress and that strain, and making sure you actually are paying attention to what's going on. And, it ties in with the roguelites kind of. Our game is very light as roguelites go, but it still sort of wants to have that feeling of like, you go into it, you play as far as you can get, learn something and go back to the beginning and get further next time.
Mm-hmm.
There are also some sort of low-level logical reasons why it made sense to do permadeath, because otherwise we would, like, if you wouldn't have permadeath, it wouldn't make sense to get more than 4 heroes, because why would you?
Right.
But then you would upgrade those to some classes that you choose, and then those would be the only classes, like that would be the configuration you played with. So some games, like one big inspiration for parts of the game initially, but we walked quite far away from that, but was the tower defense game Kingdom Rush. And one thing that they have is, like, you can buy upgrades with the stars you get from levels, but then you can choose to, like, basically sell all the upgrades and respec. And we didn't really want that, because obviously you lose the connection to I think you lose a lot of the connection to the heroes if you would be able to, like, just take away all their coins and respec them. Mm-hmm. So it made more sense to make that stick, and then it made more sense to make it stick in the way that their death also sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could, like, it would still be kind of internally consistent if we also had a way to save the game and reload if you failed a battle, but I don't know. It already fit so well into the procedurally generated kind of roguelike feeling that we felt that was natural too. We also played some XCOM around designing the.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Core. Yeah, so there's some thoughts around that too, which of course is permadeath also.
Yeah.
And we had some discussions around maybe having because we have no sort of, like, you can go back to a previous save or manually save or anything. We had some discussions around having the permadeath be an optional thing, similar to how XCOM does its Iron Man. Part of it was that we didn't quite have enough time to sort of implement both flows. But part of it was just the case that because an entire campaign is relatively short, it's only like 3.5 hours-ish, I think, to play through the whole campaign.
That sounds about what I did yesterday.
Yeah, and it feels like it's okay if you have to restart during that time. It doesn't feel like it's... like, whereas with XCOM, you can get, like, 25 hours into a campaign and then lose, like, have a squad wipe and then your game's over. I play on Iron Man and I like it, but I definitely see why they had that as a opt-in thing. But for our game where it's relatively short, I think it's okay to go back to the beginning. And you will do better on your second playthrough, or you should do better in your second playthrough, just simply by having learned more about the game.
Yeah. There might be a point, though, to make the game give you a little bit of a difficulty spike a little bit earlier in the game than we have right now, so that you can lose ones before having played like an hour or something like that. So you could lose ones early just to see how it, like, so the game puts you on your toes.
Right.
In an early stage. I don't know.
Well, I do remember it was one of the early islands where those jumbo Vikings showed up.
Oh, yeah.
And like, oh no, this is not going to go well.
Did you figure out the strategy against them?
I just throw people at them. That was my strategy.
The pikemen are really effective against them.
Okay, so I was on the right track because that I did learn that a couple islands in that I would find some sort of choke point and put the spears there and that seemed to do pretty well.
Yeah.
There was an interesting point in the learning curve of realizing that, like you said, not only were the classes locked in once you picked them, but also the item equips.
Yeah.
Because that immediately I was thinking on my second playthrough, if I get this one next time, I'll give that to that guy and such and such. Because I ended up with like one of the items that doubled the size of the squad. And so I was like, well, I have way too many archers now. I would have given that to somebody else.
Yeah.
Along the lines of just things that were just really delightful about the game when I was playing through it last night is the sound design. And I know that's more Martin's wheelhouse, but do you know all the little voices of the characters? Is that all him, or were you guys bringing in, is that some you guys? Like, how did all that get generated?
It's all Martin. It's all Martin. Yeah.
Well, it's adorable.
It is really, it's really good. It's really good.
No, it actually took a while for the audio to come together. Now, there's actually some things about the music that took a while to come together. But
that was tricky. But it's good now.
Yeah, and he found some really nice, simple solutions to the music in the levels. And if you listen to how it's going, we were talking for a while about how the sort of didn't want it to have more intense music when the fighting was going on because we wanted the combat sounds to shine through then.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about having these very complicated dynamic systems of, testing how busy the scene was or how much was going on. And actually all we ended up with was just, as each wave comes in, there is a theme tune for each of the types of Viking. And whoever's the scariest Viking in that wave, it plays their theme tune as they're coming in. And that just builds up and builds up and builds up until they land, and then it just drops off.
Yeah.
So we naturally get this thing where during the fighting there's less music, but you get this really big build of tension, and then as the next wave comes in, you get that build of tension again. And it's constantly doing that before it builds tension and dumps enemies at you and lets the gameplay take over. And it's a really simple solution, but it worked really, really nicely.
Yeah.
So he's done a lot of good work with finding that, and just loads of details in everything. So much nice stuff in there. Each of the units have their own different walking footstep sounds, and there's often extra layers of things on top of for different units. There's a lot of detail, and it really sells a lot of the combat. It's also already being sold really well by Oskar's art, but that additional layer on it is so nice.
Because I know we didn't talk too much about that in the last interview that we had, but that was also a really neat element of the game, was just all that sound design. So you'll have to thank him for me, because that was, it's very good. Yeah. I don't know if this was explicit or not, but for whatever reason, the little music cue that plays on the island selection screen was somewhat reminiscent of Blade Runner for me. I don't know. That rang in my head for whatever reason. I was like, this kind of sounds like Blade Runner. So it was announced that you guys are going to be, Discord first. Was that all a negotiation with Raw Fury, or were you guys pitching for that?
And the whole thing with Discord largely came about because Discord were very quietly reaching out to people like Raw Fury, and I assume a few other, most of the other sort of indie publishers or boutique publishers, whatever you want to call them, because they want to make a store that is a curated store, and they want to have indies, and they want to have indies first on the platform. And, from our point of view, they're offering to actually partner up with us and do some promotion of the game and support us in various ways. And all of that is really, really positive.
Yeah.
Given the current situation on Steam, where it's very scary to go to Steam as a indie with your first game right now.
Right.
And we've been sort of relying on the fact that we sort of cross-platform with, and especially with Switch being sort of the spearhead of our stuff. We were on the Indies Direct back in March, April, whatever GDC was. Yeah, we were on that.
I remember that.
We're sort of been working with them a bit to push the word out. And we were hoping that would give us enough visibility to get us sales on other platforms, because, PC is hard to get visibility on. It's hard to get sales on. And that is so much of how we've been approaching the business side of this game, is to try and minimize our risks. effectively.
Yeah, because I know there's been a couple of things recently where it seems like people have launched a game and then, couple weeks, couple months after, they're shutting their doors because they just couldn't get the visibility they needed.
Yeah, that recently happened to some friends of ours here in Malmo also. It's a bit sad.
Yeah.
But it's also, there's also there, and we have a pretty low stakes kind of situation where we don't even have an office. We both work from home. So I'm not that, worst case scenario, if this game doesn't sell, I had a great 2 years and I'll see if Massive wants me back. That's not a pretty bad scenario.
Right.
It's been great. It's been super fun. I think the game will do well, but even if it doesn't, it's been super fun.
Well, from an outsider's perspective, it seems like most of the stuff that's been launching on Steam, most of the stuff that's been launching on Switch recently, kind of just given the nature of the Switch right now, that seems like a very promising thing that's happening.
Yeah. That's probably the case, but of course, if everyone thinks that's promising, then everyone goes to Switch, and then we're
right.
They're all over. But I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good.
I think it's in a very good place. Nintendo's been talking about increasing the volume of indies coming out on the Switch, and so in a year's time, who knows? But at this point right now, it feels like a really, really good place to be. So
I guess you've said it's been, so you've been in development approximately 2-ish years, or a little more, a little less.
Actually, since I think I started in November, I think, not last year, but the year before. But a little bit less than 2 years, yeah.
Yeah. So what's been, this is a very broad question, but I guess what's been the biggest thing that you have taken away from, with launch just over the horizon, what's been the biggest thing that you've taken away from this experience?
Well, I've learned a ton of just technical things. I've learned a ton about just programming and things like that. So if I would write the game again, or there's so many things I would have done differently, because I came into this as a relative novice programmer, and that's one of the reasons why I reached out to Richard to bring him on board, because I felt like I needed a proper code person also, and partly to help me out and to help teach me and to have someone to go back and forth with. So that's a very low level technical thing. Rich?
I'm not even sure.
It's hard to tell.
I'm too tired to think. It's my current status for the last couple of weeks. I'm too tired to think. Yeah, I also have learned a lot of things, a lot more on the sort of business side, even though Raw Fury has taken over on a lot of those things for us. And there's still quite a lot that we've had to do. I'm not really sure if I have any strong takeaways, though. Strong lessons learned.
It's a little bit hard to tell before the game is out, I think, because that's when we sort of get the the answer sheet, kind of, when we get to see, okay, what did actually work and what didn't work. So far, it feels like most things, especially a lot of the things that some people most things around visibility and hype feels like it's been going quite smoothly for us. And I think that's due to just some of the nature of the game. Well, I think we've made a fairly nice game, but also just the nature of the game. It looks distinct. It's, it's very quick to convey what the game is about. You can show a 2-second GIF and you kind of get a sense of what's cool with the game. But that's, we still don't know if that works, but so far, it looks like it's working. But it's harder to, I don't know, it's harder. You mostly learn from mistakes, I guess, and it's not super obvious what our mistakes have been, at least not to me.
Right. I know this was all kind of impromptu. It's I should interview those guys again. Is there anything else that you would want the listening audience to know about Bad North?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been really fun. For me as an artist, it's been incredibly fun getting to sort of drive my own art direction in a bigger project that's actually going to come out. I've of course done that on side projects before, but on bigger professional projects, I've always worked in bigger teams, and it's been really, really fun to be able to sort of consider the art holistically in that kind of way. And also it being like basically just me doing the art, I can sort of consider, I can do things in weird ways and come up with weird pipelines that would be hard to teach other artists or communicate to other people. But since it's all just in my head, it's been like I can experiment so much and do so many weird things, and that's been so much fun.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you again for, sitting with me and letting me ramble at you for a while.
All right, no worries.
It's been really interesting having interviewed you guys last year and then finally getting a chance to play the game and seeing, these things that we talked about and being like, oh, that's that thing they mentioned. So it's been a really neat experience as, something of a games journalist and then also as a layperson to have these kind of neat experiences that are provided by actually being able to sit down and talk with the developers. And so it's been really neat. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.